Then hello and welcome. This is our Qlik Meetup session number 10. Today with special guest Göran Sanders. Hello and welcome. I came across Göran because he had a pretty interesting post on LinkedIn with regards to Node-RED and Ctrl-Q. And at this time around, I was playing around with Node-RED myself, but I was playing around with my solar panels, so I was pretty shocked or interested that you could use it for Qlik as well, and that's why I got in contact with Göran, and he was so kind to join us for today's session, and so thank you for coming and showing your inventions and sharing them with us. And let me briefly introduce Göran because he has a quite interesting bio. He worked for Spotify for almost 10 years, if I'm correct, and he's also a Qlik luminary. And from what I can tell, you're doing your own business. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
And so with that said, I would say I would give it over to you, and let's take a look at your inventions.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. And let's see, I was actually at Spotify for 10 years and 1 day. Let's just say that it was not a coincidence that it was 1 day. I thought it was pretty cool that it would be double digits. So, but those were 10 good years, a very interesting company. But then as of about 5 years ago, I left Spotify and been running my own business since. It's just my own, me, myself, and I in a consulting company. So I will share my screen and see if how does this work? Here we go. And like that. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, cool. And first, I mean, there are only what, 4, 5, 6 of us. So if you have any questions, just unmute, ask it. I would prefer if this is an open discussion more than anything else when there's so few of us. And if I'm not making sense in some way, something is unclear, just ask. When I'm talking about something I'm passionate about, sometimes you don't realize that everyone else might not be as deep into this as you. So this is me. As mentioned, I have been working in the Qlik space for quite some time and working with computers for my entire life, based in Stockholm, Sweden. And I tend to, if you would stumble upon me on social media, it's going to be outdoors somewhere, some outdoory picture. It's where I usually spend my non-Qlik time. And the links at the bottom there is where you find me online. Ptarmigan Labs is my company, and that site, ptarmiganlabs.com, is a blog with Qlik stuff, more or less. So if you're doing Qlik development or working with the Qlik in some shape or form, that could be interesting. Should say that I mostly work with Qlik Sense, on-prem, client managed, and cloud. Not that much other Qlik tools, the more recently acquired tools. It's not my area of expertise. And with that said, yeah, I have been hacking away for the last few years. So I am a somewhat lazy person, lazy in the sense that I don't like repeating myself and doing like repetitive work, it's boring, it's error prone and so on. So over the years, I've created a set of different projects in some variant, some shape or form will automate and make things simpler when it comes to the Qlik Sense ecosystem. The top row with the Butler tools, the first two, the Butler and Butler SOS, is about monitoring of client-managed Qlik Sense applications, environments, sorry. So things like reload failure monitoring and alerting, or Butler SOS is about real-time monitoring of Sense environments. So, for example, if something breaks, you should be the first to know if you're responsible for a Sense environment. And these things are largely the standard way of working in the bigger IT industry out there. Of course, you monitor things properly, but in the Qlik world, that's rarely the case. And quite often, you have your end users come and tell you that something's broken. So that's the Butler tools. And then the sheet icons is if you want to have like these miniature images in your Qlik Sense app sheets for sheet thumbnails, you can use Butler sheet icons. And what we will talk about today is the Ctrl-Q tools. And they're not about monitoring. They're more about solving specific use cases that could be very tedious otherwise. For example, Ctrl-Q can let you, let's say that you have 100 Sense apps that you need to import into a Sense environment. You have them as QVF files, you need to import them into a new environment. And you also need to create reload tasks for those imported apps. Ctrl-Q lets you do this. You define everything in an Excel file, and then you run one command and import everything. 100 apps, 250 tasks, whatever. And similarly then for master items and variables and other app assets. So it's about automating otherwise difficult tasks. At the bottom right, Ctrl-Q NR, that's what we're going to talk about today. And the difference between the Ctrl-Q and Ctrl-Q NR is the NR, obviously, the Node-RED suffix. And where Ctrl-Q is then a command line tool, Ctrl-Q NR is a visual tool, as Node-RED is a visual platform, as we will see. And Ctrl-Q works for client-managed Qlik Sense, so the old Qlik Sense Enterprise on Windows. Whereas Ctrl-Q NR, the Node-RED variant, has modules and nodes for both Sense Cloud and client-managed. And these are, by the way, all these are open source. You can use them for free. When I do consulting, I tend to quite often, an assignment starts with the client saying that, no, we're in good shape. And then something breaks badly sometime. And then they say, well, what about that monitoring you've been doing? So it's a bit of a maturity process, but it's well invested time and effort, I would say. Right, so today we will talk about Node-RED and show of hands. If we were physical here, now we could do a raise of hands, but how many of you know about Node-RED? Hands up or unmute or something. Bernard knows? One. Anyone else? No? So Node-RED is it's a visual low-code platform. Usually when you develop applications, you write some code in some programming language like Qlik script or JavaScript or Python or whatever. Low code is a term that came out a few years ago when and it's used for tools where you don't need to write code in the same way. You may have to write some, but usually you don't have to write any code whatsoever. Node-RED was created at IBM about 6, 7, 8 years ago. It's been open source since, and is today a rather mature platform. Node-RED it's very popular in the Internet of Things community, and for integrating various sensors, like Bernard mentioned his solar panels. I'm doing exactly the same, in fact, using Node-RED. But there are thousands and thousands of modules to Node-RED that extend the core package in various ways. So if you have a database, you can connect it to it using Node-RED. It's a great prototyping platform. Docker is the runtime, the container runtime I'll be using today. Node-RED itself runs on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, on Docker, on mainframes. Node-RED runs on everything. And then we will put Ctrl-Q NR on top of all this. And starting from, I'll start from when I do the demos, I'll start from the very basics and go all the way up to actual use cases in QlikSense. And yeah, it's about Node-RED. A lot of people would say that it's a prototyping tool, and I would agree. It's great for prototyping, but it's over the years it's become so stable. I mean, I have personally run workloads 24/7 for the past 2-3 years at least, without any problems at all. And then I'm collecting sensor data and doing various things. So reading maybe 25-30 measurements every 15 seconds for 3 years without any problems whatsoever. I would say it's stable enough. I don't expect a bank to use it for their core systems, but for maybe a temporary integration between various components and Qlik, it's really good. I have used it, for example, for during migration projects where there have been migrations from client-managed QlikSense to on-premise QlikSense to QlikSense Cloud, because there was a need to start reload tasks in both client-managed and cloud in certain ways, and then Node-RED became the platform to do that. So, any questions so far?
Which API are you using?
Mostly the repository service, the QlikSense repository service for the client managed, but also the engine API. Some things are available from the QRS, the repository, and some things are available only via the engine. For example, the load script. If you want to modify the load script of an app, then you have to go via the engine. Whereas if you want to get metadata about an app, you can do that using the repository API. And so a bit of background then about Ctrl-Q and NR. It's actually, I prototyped this and made a proof of concept about 4 years ago. And that was before Qlik had any low-code tool itself. Since then, the application automation from Qlik has been launched, and it's really good, but it's for cloud only. And as such, it's really useful for interacting with QlikSense Cloud applications, but it's less useful for interacting with on-premise systems and services, simply because it's running at Qlik. Then the Ctrl-Q NR, this concept using Node-RED, was restarted this past summer. And because I needed a way of solving certain things, and this became the way to do that. So it's not a replacement for Qlik application automation, but it can do most of the things, or many of the things that Qlik's tool can use, and then some additional ones. So my tool does not today have the same coverage that application automation has. But that's also, if there's a need to add certain features, then it's fairly easy to do because it's open source and the source code is available. So demo time. And this, I guess, is what's most interesting. My plan is to both show how to get started with Node-RED and also how to install Ctrl-Q in Node-RED itself, and then go into various demos and examples. And there, you know, let's have an open discussion and see if what your thoughts and feedback is as well. And with that, I think I will switch. Yeah. Oh, let's see. I will switch screens here to this. That's a Node-RED site. Yeah, it's node-red.org, by the way. And first of all, I will be starting Node-RED in a Docker container. So Docker it's a runtime environment for containers. So instead of installing Node-RED as a Windows binary or as a Mac installation package, I will just run it in a container. And it's then specific for this session. So the command I'm using is docker compose and a certain definitions file up. This will create a container with Node-RED inside it. And if you were to do the same then on Windows, for example, you would see exactly the same information. Yeah, so Node-RED is now running. It's running locally on my computer where I'm doing this. So I'll take that away and move to this tab here. I have a few prepared tabs. And I'll do a reload. And we're now in Node-RED. So this is what a fresh installation looks like. It gives you a set of nodes, pre-installed nodes on the left here. And it has a canvas in the middle where you can drag and drop nodes into the canvas like this. And some documentation on the right and a debug view also on the right. And well, what else? There are various nodes, as they're called, on the left here. Basic common ones. You have what's called function nodes. There you can change the contents of messages that are being sent, introduce delays. You have a function here that you can write JavaScript using. Node-RED has really good built-in support for network operations. So there are a set of nodes here for doing all kinds, almost any kind of network operation you can imagine, both raw UDP, TCP, and then also more high-level HTTP and MQTT and so on. So this is probably one of the real strengths of Node-RED, that it has such solid support for network operations. It also it can parse things like JSON and CSV and XML and so on. And at the bottom here, there are a few storage nodes. And these will be interesting because they can, for example, Node-RED can watch a folder or a file for changes and trigger flows when those changes are detected. We'll get back to that. A very basic demo could be that let's connect this inject node, this input node here, and this debug output, like this. So here we have the most basic flow or workflow that we can imagine. By double-clicking on this timestamp here, I open up its properties. I see that the message that will be sent contains a payload, which is a timestamp, time right now. And another field here that I'm not interested in, I'll take that away and click done. And when I click deploy up here, I basically save my changes, and oh, the workflow is ready to be used. So if I click this button here on the left, I will send a message over this wire to the debug output. It's then the timestamp that we talked about. And it shows up here. You can see also that there's a dashed outline on the debug node here when I move my mouse over that output. I can click on it to see that it's actually a timestamp. Time is now 17:23. Yeah, looks good. And if I'm to use this function node here, let's say that I want to do some JavaScript, I can connect that one. I open it up and I type message.payload equals my message. So I'm assigning a small text to the payload property of the message object. And I'm going to add another debug node and deploy. So if this works now, we should get two messages, and one is a timestamp and one is a string, a text. I'm going to clear the debug output here first, like that, and try this again. And we get two messages. So this node here creates one message that goes to these two different parts, each outputting a debug. So that's sort of the most basic demo of Node-RED that you can do. And with that, let's install Ctrl-Q. And then we have this menu in the upper right. We can go to the palette management. And here we see what modules we already have installed. There's only one installed right now, the default Node-RED. 50 nodes, the ones we see on the left, are installed. And we're going to install then Ctrl-Q. That's the one. And if we go back, we see that there are almost 4,700 modules available, covering everything. Like if we want to connect to a SQL database, there are almost 100 modules, that connect to SQL databases in some way. When it comes to Qlik, there's only one Qlik module. It's Ctrl-Q. And I before this meetup, I detected a bug last night or yesterday. So the current version is only 18 hours, but it's now, as far as I know, it's bug-free. I'm sure there are bugs, but at least there are no showstoppers. Clicking install, you get a warning. That's fine. And it downloads Ctrl-Q NR, and we had a set of new nodes added to our Node-RED environment. And though they show up here on the far left, they're grouped as QlikSense Enterprise on Windows, so client-managed nodes first, and then a set of cloud nodes at the bottom. And each node, it's not entirely easy to decide what should be a node and how to partition the nodes. But what I've done so far is basically to say that, okay, let's say take basic concepts from QlikSense, like an app or a task, and make nodes around those concepts. If we look at the app node here, this is an app. This node represents an app in client-managed QlikSense. If we open it up, the properties are more or less what you would expect. We have to tell it which QlikSense server we want to work with. And then there are a set of different operations that can be done. So it can read information about an app. It can update the metadata about an app. Let's say which tags are present for an app, or Is it published, and so on. It can delete apps, duplicate apps, get and set load scripts of apps. And this list is obviously where then in the future, as needs evolve, and when we need to do something new with apps, maybe new operations can be added here. At first, the first version of the tool, it only had one operation, read. And then as my own needs surfaced, new needs surfaced, new operations were added. And
sorry, just a question.
Yep.
So get load script would mean to extract the text of the load script.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. And that would, for example, let's say that you have 25 apps, and you need to make a change in the load script of each app. Then you can either open 25 apps, make that change manually, or you can do a little script here that says, find all apps with a certain tag. And then for each of those apps, get the load script, change it, and write it back. So it's a bulk and replace. This allows a bulk and replace concept for load scripts.
Have you thought about the same with master elements?
Not right now. The original, the command line version, Ctrl-Q, that runs from the command line, it does that for master items as well. So there you can define, you can extract master items into an Excel file. You can modify them in that Excel file, and you can write them back.
Okay.
To one app or to 50 apps. So it's kind of if you prefer to work on the command line, then Ctrl-Q will be where you go. If you want to do things visually, you would go to Ctrl-Q NR.
Mm-hmm.
So far, as of today, the Node-RED version is less developed, but it's also easier to add new features to the Node-RED version. So it's adding new nodes here or modifying existing nodes is fairly easy, and it then adds more features.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, I will leave this tab and go to another Node-RED instance that I have prepared, because the next step here would be to add credentials for the different service we want to work with and so on. And that all takes time and it's kind of boring. So I prepared a different Node-RED environment, also running on my computer, where this has all been set up. And there are also a set of demos here. So now we get to the interesting parts. Same basic setup. We have Node-RED installed and Ctrl-Q NR installed. So we have the nodes here. But I also have configured then one Sense server running here locally in my house with certificate files, and now you know what the IP address is, and that's promise not to tell anyone. And then there's also a QlikSense Cloud instance set up using, in this case, we're using OAuth 2 machine-to-machine authentication, but you can also use API keys or JWTs if you want. But setting up this authentication, that's kind of beyond the scope of this session, I figured. So now we have this buffet of demos we can pick and choose from. Let's start with licenses. The background here was that I wanted to be notified like 30 days before Qlik licenses expired. I've seen too many times that Qlik companies using QlikSense, they suddenly realize that their license expired and no one can access it. And then you have to renew, and it takes some time, and no one's happy. So instead, I wanted to get a notification a few days, a month maybe, before license expiration. And this then allows me to do that. So if I click here, we have a QSCloud license node here that it's only points to a Sense Cloud tenant. That's the only thing it does. But its output here, to this node here, is a license object. So when I clicked it, I got a license object back from Qlik Sense Cloud. And it's very rich. It contains lots and lots of information, including the expiration date for this subscription. So I'm good until October next year, 5th of October next year. So that's nice. And then I could then use this information to test and see that once I'm less than 30 days before this date, send me an email or a Slack message or something. And that's actually what this example at the bottom here, down here, is about. I'm going to clear that. Here we do the same, but for client-managed Qlik Sense. So the first node here is just to get things started. When I click it, I will start this flow here. Does it contain anything? No. There's no message or anything. The only thing is that it runs every 24 hours. So this check, if I leave this flow, this Node-RED instance running, this check will be done every 24 hours. Then this is another node then for client-managed Qlik Sense, so on-premise. And it will give us the full license information from the Sense server, including information about is it expired or not. The information we get back from Sense is it includes lots and lots of data, and we can extract the exact expire date as well. Then down here, this is actually just an empty node, doesn't contain anything. But here we could add logic to test if we are within 6 days of expiry, and then send an email to an admin.
The valid until is just, let's say, an extraction to the specific attribute you just showed us, right?
Yeah. So if I click here, can look at the actual data. I'm going to run this. And so is it expired? We got small, I don't know if you can see this, but it says false down here, expired false, and then valid until May 2nd next year. And the complete license object, and this is what we get back from the Qlik repository API. Complete license object, oh, there's my key in there. I won't be showing that. It contains key value pairs of data, including the validity date. So here in this node here, I extract, basically split long strings to break them up into key value pairs where the expiry date is one. So this is an example where some coding is needed. This is a low code tool. You don't need to do a lot of coding, but in this case, we needed to actually do a little bit.
And if you need coding, it's JavaScript. It's
JavaScript, correct? And the good news is that ChatGPT is actually pretty good at JavaScript. So this one actually it comes from, I asked ChatGPT that, okay, let's say that I have a string that looks like this. I gave it basically the result from the repository API, and I want to break out these particular pieces. Please give me some JavaScript code, and this is what I got. So it's it does work. So we can look at reload tasks for Qlik Sense. I'm gonna hide that so we get some more space. And clear that. So let's say that we want to start reload tasks or manage reload tasks in client-managed Qlik Sense. So Qlik Sense Enterprise on Windows. This node here, the QSEoW-task node up here. You see it. Let's us do that. The operations we can do is only 2 operations for tasks: start task or look up the task IDs given, for example, a task name. But here we want to start tasks, and we define the task IDs to start down here. So these 2 are reload tasks, and this is an external program task, and this one doesn't exist at all. And let's also look at the QMC. Oh. And because this is where we will see whether things are working or not. And we will get a result on the right here to see what happened. Like that. If I click Start Tasks, that was quick. I'm not sure actually why I have 2 of these. Only need 1, like that. But let's see what happened here. I get the result with 2 parts in it: started and task ID no exist. And the last one here is indeed that task ID that doesn't exist in Sense. So I get that information that you passed in an invalid task ID. Okay. And 2 reload tasks were started. It's an array of 2. And 1 external program task was started. No distribution tasks or user sync tasks were started. We also then get information about the actual tasks. And this is exactly the same information we get back from Qlik when starting a task. It's a bit of overwhelming amount of information, but if you need to dig into some property of a task, it's all here. This is everything there is, including things like tags, for example, which tags are set for a task. And the time is now about 1740. So if we go to the QMC and refresh, we should have 1739. Yeah, those 2 are the task started, and the third one was actually already running. So it was not started again. So that works. And but that was a very basic example and probably not very real world. Let's say that we want to start a set of predefined tasks when a file on disk changes. This could be interesting. For example, if you have a data source that sends new data files, CSV files or whatever, to a file share, and you want to do something in Qlik when data arrives. You don't want to wait an hour for the next scheduled reload. You want to do something when data arrives. This could be a way of doing that. So what we're going to do here is to write some text to a file. This file here, data drop reload demo 1. And the contents, we're just going to write a timestamp into that file. And then we have this watch node here that will fire when there is a change to the watched directory or file. So we're watching this data drop directory that we're writing to. So if this works, when we write to this file here in the data drop directory, this should trigger and send a message to this task, this node here that starts reload tasks, can reading this data then. And if everything works, we should get an output in this node here. We can look at which reload tasks are started. We should start these 3 task IDs when this file is modified. And let's write that file. And this is an actual file that's being written to my computer here. So this is sort of a real life demo. Happened instantaneously. It was picked up by the watch node, and the task started. And again, we have 2 reload tasks and 1 external program task. It's the same tasks as in the last example up here. And if we go to the QMC, we'll see that it was 1739. It's now 1743. Mm-hmm. And by the way, these tasks are designed to fail. They fail instantly by design. And same thing, you can use Node-RED. So this is a timer node. It will fire when at sunrise, midday, and at sunset. We will reload tasks. I have no clue why you would want to do that, but it's possible. And that's sort of also the beauty of Node-RED, that there are nodes doing all kinds of stuff. For example, this timer node is it does so many different things. What do we want? Solar noon, sure. Nautical dusk, no problem. Solar midnight, I have no clue what solar midnight is, but you can schedule using that as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you could also have some listening objects on a database, I guess. There should be some nodes for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if a database can call a REST API or just an HTTP, anything that can call an HTTP address, like a web address, could be used to trigger this. And that's the next demo here. So here we have a webhook. This node here is an HTTP listener. It listens for incoming HTTP requests. And when, for example, every web page is an HTTP request. And this is what's called a webhook. And so it listens, and when a call happens to this webhook, again, we will start some sense tasks and see the output here. Clear that. And to see this in action, then we have to make that call. So the first row up here is about calling that webhook. And it just makes a very simple GET call to this address, which then happens to be this webhook. And again, I click up here, I make a HTTP call here, it's picked up here, and the task has started. With that, I think we'll jump ahead and look at something slightly bigger. We're not going to go into details, but just to give you an idea of what's possible. So the idea here is that I want to know in the QMC which apps have not been reloaded for a long time. So I know that I have something like 400 or 500 apps on this server, and some of them have not been reloaded since 2017, and some have not been reloaded since 2018. But which ones are they? I could look in the QMC, but I want to tag them. I want to add a tag to each app, and it should contain the year it was last reloaded. So that could be interesting for if you're an admin, for example, running this daily, and maybe not for 2017, but apps not reloaded in 3 months or in 6 months. Maybe you want to keep track of them and talk to the respective app owners. So this flow here will first get all apps, get a list of all apps on the server, and then actually what it does first here is to create 2 tags, reload 2017 and reload 2018. And it's a tag node. It's another node from Ctrl-Q. It works with this server here, and it creates tags in Qlik Sense. Create these 2 tags. You can also have comments here, as you see. So these 2 tags should be created. And then this node here means getting all apps, all information about all apps. And then some logic for massaging the data and sort of making it work. Before, and then finally we get down to sort of this section down here, where tags will be applied to the apps, depending on how old they are, when they were last reloaded, sorry. And if we look now and see how many tags do we have right now, that can be, we can do that up here with these 3 nodes. The tag node here is tag read, just read information about all tags, and then show that information here. So let's get that. Okay, we have 26 tags right now. That's also shown below this node here. So as soon as I click this one here, we create two new tags, 2017 and 2018. So we should go up to 28. And then things will work down here. It's going to take a while because we rate limit to 1 change every 1 second, so we don't overwhelm Sense. But the outcome should be that we should be able to filter apps then in the QMC using these tags. So let's do it. Tags created. If I now look at how many tags do we have 28. We can see that up here. So 2 tags were created. And we also see that these numbers here are counting down. 47, 46, 45 means that we have that many apps left to tag. And down here, update app, we see that apps are being updated once per second, 33 to go, and so on. And the outputs here are, they show us, oh, they're going to be scrolling here. It's going to be difficult. We see that the tags were indeed applied. Reload 2017 was applied, that tag. And when was the app last reloaded? Let's see, where is it? Last reload time here was indeed then 2017, something, October, something. And this is the operations monitor from Qlik.
Do you make this limiter in order for the sake of the demo, or is there some sort of constraint?
Both, really. But in general, it's a good idea not to throw too much at the Qlik server. Okay. The Qlik server will sooner or later respond with an error message saying that I can't do this so fast, and then we should just keep the rate down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Okay. Especially if you have a big server with a distributed database, maybe a database running on a separate server and so on, a big cluster, then I would definitely rate limit things just to be safe. So we still have 28 tags here. Let's see. Yeah, still 28 tags. And if we now want to delete these tags that we created, we can use the tag node again, but the delete operation. Mm-hmm. And here I can then delete 2017 tag. Okay, tag deleted. And the 2018 tag. And now I should have 26 tags again. Yep. So that was a bit more complex. Still, in here, there's not a single line of coding. You have to understand how Node-RED works. But there's no coding, no scripting involved at all.
How
And then
about if you create a node, a Qlik node, let's say I want a node where I can extract some user groups from users, for example. Is that difficult, or how would you approach that?
So each node, if we bring up the node list here, each node here consists of two files. One HTML file that basically, for example, the tag node here. The HTML file controls what drop downs are present and everything that you can do here. So the visual appearance. And then there's a JavaScript file that contains the logic. And what is this? So two files, and it's you need to know JavaScript in order to create new nodes. The good news is that once we have now, 10 nodes, the next one's going to be a lot of copy pasting, because the general structure of every node is the same. You have a small user interface, the properties here. You have to adapt that to whatever you're doing, and then the JavaScript for the logic itself.
And the API keyword you are using from the Qlik engine side.
Yeah. So the APIs are the repository API and the engine API. Both are documented. I might have them here somewhere. Yes, I can bring them up. So it's right there on Qlik site. This is for the latest version. And for example, let's say we go to the real one here. There are then, the API is very, very rich. So there are API endpoints for example, for an app. To delete an app, you would use the delete app ID endpoint. To get information about an app, you would use this endpoint. And there are then hundreds and hundreds of endpoints doing different things. So if you have a specific use case that you would like to solve, you would most likely figure out which combination of APIs do I need to use and work against those APIs from within that JavaScript file in your node. Can make an example looking at the cloud as a sort of wrapping this up. You talked about user. It's gonna refresh that. So we're now looking at Qliksense cloud nodes, and there is a user node dealing with Qliksense cloud. So here we have a connection to a tenant in cloud. We do a read operation as the only operation we can do for this node. So we're basically going to read information about all users in this tenant. And looks like there are 4 users in this tenant. And we got information about them like this. It's kind of basic, but here, the next one here then is that get all users that have a valid email address. Okay. Let's run that one. Get something back, and it's only one. Happens to be me. Here's my email address. And okay, so we can detect which tenant users have email addresses. Then we can also send an email to those users. So let's say that we have a sense training coming up next week. And we want to send out an invitation to all the tenant users that we have an email address for. Same, this final demo example here builds on the previous one. So what we do is that we get all users in the tenants, we find their email addresses, and we send an email to them. The last part here, send email, is an example of how easy it is to build integrations with Node-RED. It's a single node here for sending an email. Sure, there are a couple of nodes before to format the message and so on, but interacting with Gmail is super simple.
Mm-hmm.
You need to create an app password in Gmail, but that's it. So if I click here, if everything works, I should get an email with an invitation to next week's Sense training. And I'm gonna see if I got that. See if this demo works. And it did. Look. So welcome to Ctrl-Q training next week. This was sent 0 minutes ago. And you can have HTML formatting and yeah, nicely formatted messages and so on.
Yeah.
So this is a bit how you can combine various aspects of nodes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, there are a lot of ideas that pop up in my head right now. I'm sure if you're sort of system admin, you will make great use of this.
It is. It's mostly an admin task or a data integration tool. For example, if you want to try sending data from some source system, you want to prototype a data feed into Qlik, then Node-RED could be quite useful to do that. To trigger the reloads, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really see this being very, very useful.
Yeah, there's the nodes we have here at our disposal right now. It's kind of a most important first approach, where apps obviously are core concept in Qlik Sense. So there are app nodes both for cloud and on-premise. And then as needs arise, new nodes have been added and will be added.
Mm-hmm. But since you said that your coding platform is more sophisticated, you're mainly using the command line tool. Is that right, or am I misinterpreting it?
For different scenarios, different things. Like it's if I need to interact with some other system, for example, let's say we have a point of sale system in a big store where the different point of sale terminals generate some data that can be detected. They write logs to a file somewhere. Then we can detect that and trigger on that using Node-RED and start flows in Sense based on the Node-RED platform. Then I would use Node-RED. But if I have to, for example, to go to the Ctrl-Q site, let's see. Here, let's say that I want to understand what the reload tree looks like, I would use the command line tool because it will give me a tree view of the reload chain, which Node-RED doesn't do. So they do different things and thus complement each other. Other questions? We lost a few. Frank, carry on. You're still here.
Still here, pretty amazing.
So
Yeah, of course.
what are your take? What do you do in the Qlik world?
I work my company on planning how those Qlik sense programs should look like, actually together with Bernd, and he is actually developing it.
And Frank?
Yeah, I work for a company who builds solar modules.
Okay.
And we use Qlik in the production, to see errors and something. So,
Well, then, given how good, how strong Node-RED is when it comes to data sensor integrations with various sensor systems, could be worth looking into. I think both Bernard and I we pull data from our solar panels using Node-RED, so that I personally use that to that together with the real-time electricity prices I run in Node-RED to decide whether to turn off the heating in my house, when the heating should be turned off and on based on electricity prices and solar radiation and stuff. I'm not sure I'm actually saving any money on it, but it's a lot of fun. I am saving money on it. I know that.
Yeah, same here. I'm trying to achieve, we call it Null-Einspeisung in German. It's like you don't want to put energy into the system because you give it away for free, basically. So at any point in time, you want to exactly power your system with the electricity you need,
but you don't get paid if you deliver energy to the network, to the grid?
Not at a
Really?
small scale.
Huh. So we get paid the same at this price on the spot market.
Yeah, no, market doesn't work in Austria, unfortunately.
Interesting.
And if we get something, it's much lower than the asking price, let's say. It's like a fraction, like 10% or something. I really have no clue how this is working because it sounds a bit like a rip-off, but yeah, that's how it works in Austria.
I guess the market for batteries will be better than for energy storage.
No, not really.
But I mean, if so, you can store the surplus energy and use it at a later time during the day.
Yeah, the problem about batteries is that they are so expensive. So if you calculate your project and I don't know, you buy 100 or 200 amp hours, it's really hard to make a business case that it's that adds up in the end. So my plan is to use the electric car as a battery, because then I don't have to buy it. But it does not work to take the energy from the car at this point in time. So this will hopefully come next year. And financially speaking, that would make much more sense.
Yeah. Just have to upgrade the car.
Yeah.
No, but it's been good. Any other thoughts or questions or feedback, or just if something comes up, just drop a line on LinkedIn or via Bernard.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, thank you very much for the presentation. So I'm really interested and curious about what you did, and I will follow you, of course, in the future and see how it develops. Thanks a lot for your time and your effort. I highly appreciate it, and I hope we can have a follow-up session in a year or two, and to see how it goes. So, congratulations to your work.
Thank you. And we'll see what comes out of it. It's an ongoing project, let's say.
Yes, it is.
All right, guys. It was fun. Take care. And it's over to dinner duties here in Stockholm.
Yeah, same here.
Thanks.
So see you at
Bye.
the next session, and we will put the recording on the YouTube channel, and you will get a link notification via LinkedIn or Meetup, wherever you found this session. So thank you and goodbye.
All right. Cheers.